Airing on OffTheHookSports.com, your home for real news, real opinions, and what really matters about Tennessee athletics. The Off the Hook Podcast at OffTheHookSports.com or Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, or wherever you go for your favorite podcasts. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, TuneIn, iHeart. Like, share, follow, subscribe. Off the Hook with Dave Hooker starts now.
Tennessee recruiting. Yeah, that's what we're going to talk about. No, not quite. It's going to be the Diamond Balls as they fall to Notre Dame, will not make it to the College World Series. And wow, guys, we've got some news we want to get to, and a complete wrap up is on our ball stuff on offthehooksports.com already up and at 'em this morning. Marlon McKinney's throwing heat. Tennessee was throwing heat. Then it gets into the seventh inning and things change dramatically. Ethan, let me start with you because you and I were texting back and forth, and I didn't have a problem with not making a pitching change when you did. Just kind of talk about that seventh inning and when you would have made the pitching change, because I'm definitely in the minority.
I feel like when the double happens, and obviously Burns, like you said, he was throwing good stuff for 6 innings, and from a surface level, you would think just keep him out there, let him cook. If nothing's going wrong, why change it? When it gives up the double, I feel like that's when you start thinking about it. When the home run goes over, I feel like Jack Brannigan never should have gotten a chance to hit his home run off Burns because Vitello even said the long ball foul that just about went fair about 2 bats before Brannigan went deep. That's when you got to pull him for sure. I would have even pulled him earlier with Drew Beam in the bullpen, with Kirby Connell in the bullpen, with guys like that. The arms that you have, I feel like you just have a better chance at success with guys that have been throwing similar heat all season. Now, and in hindsight, I guess is 2020 in that regard. But when it comes down to it, that's what I would have done. And obviously, it's a decision that proved disastrous. And Vitello's probably going to be thinking about that one for a long time.
It's a big show on tap. We do have some recruiting news, kind of a small weekend in football recruiting, but we're going to visit with Tom Hart of ESPN a little bit later in the program. He had the call and just did a fantastic job. It's hard to believe he used to be back at the Smokies with the Smokies one day, but great career, and we look forward to him. And he's got great. He's a baseball guy. He does football too, but to me, he feels like a baseball guy, and I mean that as a compliment. Amanda, what did you think about the lack of pitching change in the seventh inning?
I think it was awful. Honestly, I don't quite understand it when it's on the line. You change them out. Like why are you keeping them in? You have so many other pitchers that you could put in there, and so many people available. I just don't understand. If something's not working, change it.
But it wasn't. But guys, it wasn't like it just suddenly went off the rails and he kept him in 3 batters too long. I mean, I feel like there's kind of like there's me that didn't have really a problem with it. I'm in the minority. I mean, the Twitter poll on OTH Sports Media will tell you that. I'm big time in the minority. I'm willing to admit that. But I feel like there's me, there's Ethan, and then there's Amanda. Like, what the bleep were you thinking? And I mean, I appreciate both perspectives, but I felt like he was going to right the ship because now this is the eye test, and the eye test will get you in more trouble than anything else. I thought his ball placement was good. I don't know if you guys know, but I did umpire for 5 years. So I thought his ball placement was good. I thought the velocity was still there. I mean, I don't have a jugs gun, but when I looked at the pitches, I didn't have a problem. Now, the question that we have to ask ourselves is Frank Anderson not in the game because of the suspension on Friday. Would he have calmed him down? Would he have made a change early? Ethan, you've been with this team all year. Do you think that would have had an impact?
I'm not 100% sure. It's really hard to tell. We got to remember also Burns is still a freshman, a very, very capable freshman, but he's a young guy. And honestly, that's another reason that I would have thought about bringing him out after the double, because maybe not even necessarily the double. When the game gets tied up and it's 3-3, and you've given up a double and a home run in the same inning and pretty much one out. That's when you have to start thinking about it for your senior, your freshman guy, Chase Burns, who admittedly was, I mean, perfect, just about perfect through 6 innings. Just gave up 2 hits, I believe, no runs, 2 hits, and well, no, he gave up 1 run, but 2 hits in 6 innings. That's great. When you start doubling that in 1 inning, I think it's time, and especially with guys like Drew Beam, which granted is still a freshman, and guys like Kirby Connell. I've said this before already, not 5 minutes ago. When you have those arms, I feel like you just have to use them. And I mean, Drew Beam didn't even pitch. And he's the SEC Freshman of the Year, and he didn't even pitch on Sunday. And I just feel like that is really a mistake that is going to come back to haunt Vitello. And he even said it. And like I said, I've already said this already, but Vitello even said, I made that mistake there. I should have brought him out earlier, definitely before Brannigan even has a chance to bat off him.
Well, okay, he did say that, but I think a little bit that's defending his players and coach speak. I mean, yes, and in retrospect, he should have. I mean, there's no arguing in
Yeah, you're right.
retrospect he should have. But I mean, I thought he did a great job of defending his players after the game, Amanda. And it's hard day after, but the sun is up and this program is still in great shape. They just got a transfer last week from a shortstop from Kansas, who is supposed to be a really highly rated Major League Baseball prospect. So you don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. But the more and more it goes on, the more I feel like I'm digging my heels in the sand, because that was my original take. And now I'm beginning to get closer to Amanda and maybe creeping towards Amanda, getting closer to Ethan and creeping towards Amanda's opinion. Easy for me to say. Sorry.
Yeah. I don't know what the baby with the bathwater thing is, but that's a crazy analogy.
You haven't heard that before? You throw the bathwater out, but you don't have the baby in it. Okay, you have a tub when
No.
you're giving it. You've never heard that? I
I've
officially feel like the oldest person on the internet.
Well, I don't have kids, so maybe that's why I haven't.
We
I've
did
heard
never
it.
wash our kids in a tub, Amanda. I
I
mean, we
don't
didn't,
know.
we didn't have a
I'm
big
not.
iron tub.
Well, I know.
Anyway,
I don't.
it goes back to
Anyway,
like the early 1900s.
that's a lot. Anyway, I know you didn't have a problem with him not changing out pitcher, but neither did Notre Dame. So here we are.
Ouch. Let's go back to Friday. Sorry, go ahead, Eddie.
I was about to say, it should also be said, we're focusing a lot on Chase Burns and that decision. In all reality, and I wrote about this a little bit yesterday, that is not the thing that lost Tennessee the game, in my opinion. Because, change pitchers, when it comes down to it, I mean, Notre Dame got 2-3 runs off of Kirby Connell, right? And they were batting well.
Okay.
They just came alive when the time counted. And Tennessee just didn't. If you remember, I believe in the 5th inning, just 1 out and they got a guy on second. They had already scored 1 run earlier in that inning, and they couldn't get any more with just 1 guy in scoring position and 1 out, like I just said. That happened a lot. That happened a lot on Sunday. Tennessee wasn't able to capitalize off of the things that Notre Dame gave them, and Notre Dame was able to capitalize off the things they gave them. They leave Burns in. You got a pitcher that's just given up a home run and a double in the same inning, and you're going to blast another one over the left field wall. And Tennessee wasn't able to do that kind of stuff. Not to mention Trey Lipscomb, not his fault, but he made a throwing error that could have saved even more runs later in the 8th, I believe. Stuff like that, little tiny things, that's what Tennessee messed up on Sunday. And that's not what Tennessee was like during the regular season. Tennessee was on top of that stuff. And Sunday, it just looked like a completely different team. It looked like a team that, in all honesty, was a little bit shaken. And I think that more so, Tennessee not being able to do what they had done all season, that's what messed them up, rather than, one pitching change that gave up a couple runs.
I don't know if I would use the word shaken, but I definitely thought tight. Maybe we're saying the same thing with a different word. I felt like that they wanted to get ahead by about 3 runs and this thing just be over with yesterday. I mean, I don't think the goal was to hammer them by 20 like they've done previously. I think the goal was just get 3 runs, let's pitch and get out of here. And I think they thought it was over before it was over.
if they could have added on in that fifth inning, or it may not have been the fifth, whenever that was with just one out, if they could have added on there, I feel like it would be a completely different story, because you get up a couple runs on Notre Dame, and even though they had that great seventh and that great eighth, they're not a hitting team. They have to get, kind of into a groove, and they were allowed to do that in the seventh. And that's, I feel like, why they were able to keep adding stuff and eventually kind of make it a one-sided affair. But it should have been much better on Tennessee's end earlier.
I want to get into the Friday fiasco and why Tennessee fans just absolutely embarrass me sometimes. And I don't mean you watching, I mean the small percentage of goofballs that decide to throw things on the field. But first, I want to remind you that Zool Beer is a great place to go. You see Amanda with the shirt on, looking good. That's a good color for you. And their Rhymes Like Dimes won the best hazy IPA in the entire world. That is pretty awesome. And it used to be like a Volkswagen dealership. So you got that big open area, like 180 degrees of a glass where you can overlook traffic, and you got this great view. It's a super cool place to watch the game. So I would certainly check it out.
Just don't
Amanda,
throw the beer on the field.
Or at Zool.
At
for
Zool,
that
just
matter.
throw it. Yes, please don't.
Yes, don't throw beer. Period. That's alcohol abuse. We don't want to abuse alcohol. So, Friday, complete meltdown. I thought from Tennessee's perspective, but I wrote about this on Saturday. I'm putting some of that on the umps. Umpires, far too many, come into a game and think, I'm going to put these guys in their place. And I think it happens a lot at the major league level. I don't think it happens as much as college. But I thought the early warning was a sign, I guess, in the second inning. Was it Drew Gilbert, Ethan, I believe, that got the warning in center? I don't know how the hell they even heard him, excuse my language. But I just thought that the umpires came in to put Tennessee in their place. Now, if Tennessee responds, we're not having this conversation, okay? You can't turn and drop the ultimate expletive to the umpire. You can't stare him in the eye. You can't do all that stuff. But ultimately, Amanda, Friday was just a fiasco disaster that was embarrassing with more stuff on the field. That's got to stop.
I mean, yeah, as sad as this is, you have Lane Kiffin even trolling Tennessee fans over stuff like that.
I didn't see that. What did he say? What did he say?
Said something about, I think he said something about at least there's no golf balls, or I can't remember
So
what
where's
he
the
said.
golf ball on
Yeah,
Twitter?
that's what it was.
It was like a video of all the trash in the field, and he was like, "Hey, Vol football, where's the golf ball? I'm confused."
Yeah.
I'm gonna, I'll
Yeah.
Say what you want about Lane Kiffin. The guy's got jokes.
He does.
Yeah.
He's pretty funny.
Yeah.
And a great offensive mind, but we won't talk about that. Anywho, I just think when everybody after Tennessee lost, they're just going after the team and the players, and all of you guys are just going crazy, and you flipping birds, and you're doing this, and you don't even make it to Omaha. I'm like, look at stop going after the team for a second and look at the fans. Stop throwing mustard bottles. Mustard bottles did nothing to you. Stop it. I don't understand. If the embarrassing part people think is the team, some of those fans, my God, and I know we all have them. I'm not saying everybody's perfect. My God, Alabama has them too. But keep the mustard bottles in your refrigerator. Keep them at home. Please.
I'm with you. Here is Tony Vitello talking about the lack of a pitching change in the seventh.
See the foul home run against Brannigan, maybe you make the pitching change in the middle of that bat would have been wise. But I think Chase wanted the ball. He certainly took ownership of the game, felt good about the matchup against Lamanna, but should have taken him out there before, in particular after the foul home run, although normally you see that, and what usually ends up happening, you strike out as a hitter on the foul double or foul home run. But kudos to him. He smoked two balls, and I mean, it wasn't light. Chase wasn't on the mat. I mean, I think it was 97 on the radar gun or something like that. And the pitch before was certainly a ball, but it was a pretty crisp 0-2 pitch that, you'd like to see the guy swing and miss, or if it's a little closer to the plate, maybe you get a borderline strike call.
Yeah, guys, I really felt like, again, I was an umpire in baseball. I felt like the long foul would lead to some sort of ground out or something simple. That's just how the game felt to me. Maybe that's trying to be too intuitive. I don't know, but I didn't think that was a major deal at the time. But apparently it was. And the thing we have to remember, guys, and whoever wants to jump in, it just ultimately, this Tennessee baseball team has two things. On one side, it has momentum from this season moving forward, and it's probably going to be championship contenders next year, and as long as Tony Vitello is there. On the other side, they've got to think about buttoning things up just a little bit. It should be fun. Sports should be fun. However, it's hard for me to say they didn't cross the line at least a half dozen times this year.
I've got two thoughts here. First thought, kind of going off what everyone just saw with Vitello. LaManna is not a power hitter, and it's perfectly fair for him to think, let's just leave Burns out here, let him get that final out against a guy who's hit one home run all season. One. That one he hit the other day to take the lead, that was his second home run all season. And so for Vitello to think that Burns, who's throwing 97 still and good stuff, would be able to, punch him out, that's not crazy to think. And I feel like I should play devil's advocate there just to kind of back up to that point that, it's sometimes that's just baseball. Sometimes that's just LaManna doing his job better than Burns did in that instance. Now, going back to the Tennessee buttoning up things, it's really funny how the thing that ultimately, if you look at it through this lens, the thing that ultimately was the downfall of Tennessee was, Drew Gilbert turning around and giving a little smoke to the umpire. Stuff like that. Stuff like them being a little too, animated, I guess you can say. Not having Gilbert the rest of that game, that hurt. And I mean, obviously, Gilbert did not have a fantastic outing on Sunday. Who knows if that had to do with anything of it, but I kind of agree with you. There's a certain fine line between being, the team that everyone loves to hate and the villains and just being a little bit too much. And, I think there's a happy medium between that. And I think Vitello will definitely be able to find that with next season's team. And Tennessee fans should have no reason to not trust that he would be able to get that done because, he's done that kind of stuff before and he's succeeded with just about every Tennessee team he's had. So to your point, the momentum thing, I absolutely agree. The Vols probably are going to be doing this for many years to come.
Amanda, how would you, if you were the fun police, how much would you change from last year moving forward?
Well, honestly, you can look at this two different ways. Was Tennessee a little much? Yes. Did they have swagger? Yes. Did everyone hate them? Yes. But has college baseball ever been more relevant? Has as many eyes looking on college baseball as have we ever seen this many eyes? I've never seen this in my Twitter feed in my entire life. And of course, I follow a lot of Alabama sports and a lot of Alabama fans, but so many people were ready to see them crash and burn. So as a Tennessee fan or as a Tennessee player, you're putting that target on your back to get all of this hate by doing what you're doing. But college baseball is front and center now, and that's never, I don't think, ever been said.
Agreed. Now, a couple of things about college baseball they need to button up. I mean, why in God's creation was a crew flown in from the West Coast to do this game? I have no idea. Why can't you play walk-up music when you're the home team? Why can't you wear your home jerseys? You've earned the right to be the home team. There are a few things that college baseball and the NCAA, is there still an NCAA, that they need to clean up, because when showcased, sometimes they look like a sport that's flown under the radar, which they have. But nowadays, especially with the major league games taking 6.5, 7 hours. I think there's a window there. So I think you need to button some of that stuff up. I'm talking to the NCAA, and I think that's what you need to be worried about right now, because if you don't take care of that pretty quickly, then you're going to have a problem. And you want this to be an enjoyable, fast moving sport. That's the difference between it and the major league season.
Yeah, I agree. Let me add one thing to that. Last week, Tennessee, the number one team in the country, they were the visiting team twice out of their 3 games in their own stadium. Why is that? And I'm not just talking for Tennessee. I feel like the team that's the number 1 seed overall, the team like Stanford that's the number 2 seed overall, they should probably be the home team every time, because I feel like they deserve that right. And obviously, Tennessee blew through theirs. Stanford did perfectly fine in theirs. The home teams are good enough to be able to cope with that, but I feel like that's pretty obvious stuff here. And like you said, why are you flying in announcers from the West Coast? Plenty of things you can fix up with it, but it's an enjoyable sport to watch. I mean, watch any of these games, the Oklahoma State and the Stillwater Regional. It was a lot of fun, and stuff like that. It's good for baseball, not just college baseball, for the game of baseball. And Tennessee, retroactively, was also good for the game of college baseball. It, like Amanda said, it got people watching it, and that's nice to see, because it really is a good product that can be turned into a great product if little changes are made.
2 minutes, and we're back with Tennessee football recruiting news on Off the Hook Sports.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
Do you want to own the more that owns every job? Then get to Vassey Lawn and Garden in Cleveland and get you a Toro. I'm David Vassey, here to talk to you about Toro. With a Toro Zero Turn, you'll get more out of every minute and you'll reach the finish line faster. At Vassey's, we like to say, no matter if you're mowing 3 acres a week or 11 lawns a day, homeowners and business owners alike find confidence in equipment they can trust from top to bottom.
Vassey Lawn and Garden, Highway 60 North in Cleveland.
Man alive, it's worth the drive.
Oh, we're joined by a very special guest. Tom Hart is on with us now. Look at him, man. The smoothest play-by-play guy in the biz of ESPN. Tom, how are you, sir?
What's up? I'm great, except I got this, I got this light stream coming down above me. It looked like I could be in the Notre Dame grotto, I suppose. That joke. No, I'm good. How y'all doing?
Well, you're throwing the heat, man. I love the Creed joke on Friday. Usually I turn, honestly, so I typically, being in a press box, there are no announcers. There's just
Right.
a guy like Haywood Harris back in the day, if you remember that name.
Sure.
But it's first and 10 down to the 7-yard line. And that's what he does. So and so now that I tend to work from home a little bit more, I turn it down a lot because I don't want to accidentally subconsciously steal something when I write that you guys said. But I like listening to you so much I had it up. And so your partner there was, what was his name again? I'm sorry.
Kyle Peterson.
Okay, Kyle. So Kyle, for some reason, starts randomly talking about Nickelback. I have no idea what he's talking about. And Tom has the best line in sports broadcasting to the date. It's January the 13th, so we're to this point. And he said, what did I say?
January.
June the 13th. It's been a long year, Tom. So it's June the 13th. And Tom said, why are you talking about Nickelback? We're going to go Creed next? And I kudos, man.
Well, thanks. I was actually more proud of the line where we're talking about the team visiting. He was telling a story about the team visiting the Children's Hospital, and I asked if anybody got kicked out. I thought that I could imagine someone from the team getting kicked out. Not individually great guys, but as a whole, we know what the reputation is.
Yeah. Well, I want to get to Tennessee baseball, obviously, but can we start kind of a little bit bigger picture? Do you think college baseball will adjust some things in the super regionals so that you have earned the right to be a home team, the walk-up music, be in the home jerseys and that sort of thing? Or do you like the way it is now?
Well, I think, baseball is different than any other sport, maybe cricket, I suppose, where being the home team has a distinct tactical advantage, right? You get to bat last. And so I have no problem with them rotating the home team and letting the other squad bat last for one of the 3 games. I think that's fine. It's not Major League Baseball where you can afford to fly across the country between games 1 and 2. So it's practical, and I think it's fair. The NCAA as a whole, especially when it comes to baseball, has got to modernize and drop this no fun police deal because there's no reason with the technology that we have today that you can't play both teams walk-up music. You know what I mean? Like, what's it hurt?
I think it'd be cool.
Yeah, and we're sitting there over the course of the last 2 weekends calling the Auburn Regional last week and then in Knoxville for the Supers this week, and they're playing NCAA commercials between innings. What are we doing? This is an entertainment product. People want to be entertained. And I had a very frank conversation with the, I guess his title is umpire advisor down on the field before game 2. And he was absolutely disgusted with the way Tennessee plays baseball. And he was very much a get off my lawn kind of guy. And I said, listen, we all know that there's no room in the game for dropping the F-bomb on the home plate umpire. Yeah, that's an automatic ejection, no questions asked. We know that it's poor sportsmanship to flip the bird to the right fielder when you're running from first to second. Those are over there. But for the NCAA to come out and say there's no room for a fur coat or a daddy hat, and I don't know if you noticed this, but Virginia Tech has a sledgehammer they celebrate home runs with. They took it away from Virginia Tech, because of the threat. Yeah, they said, no, you can't have that anymore. And this guy was going off on there. That's just not how you play the game. And I'm like, shut up, dude. This stadium is not packed without the entertainment value that this team brings to the table. Yes, fans love winners, and they would come support this team to an extent if they were just as good as they were. But Tony Vitello and this program, they've sold this aura of this is where you have to be because we're going to do something you've never seen before. And that helps sell the game. And for people to stand in the way because of, unwritten rules or this is the way it has to be or it's always been, get out of my face with that. Just retire already. Let the kids have fun.
Yep.
I'm with you.
And I guess you just kind of answered that question. It was what I was going to ask. Just how good do you think this Tennessee team was for the game? And I guess where do you think Tennessee can go next with Vitello and obviously next year's squad?
Well, it's a shame. I'm going to look at it, 30,000-foot view. It's a shame they didn't make it to Omaha because I think they bring a lot of viewers and new fans to the game. They grab headlines. They're the, Jimmy Johnson's Miami Hurricanes, right? They're getting off the plane in fatigues. They don't care if everybody hates them. And so they're must-watch television. And those of us who have been covering college baseball for a long time and are invested in it and have relationships within the game want to see it continue to grow. It's hard sometimes, guys. And I tell our football people this too. Like, because we're in the SEC footprint, we think that the entire country thinks the same way of these sports, whether it be college football or college baseball to be specific, when in reality, there's an entire country out there, or at least pockets of it, that don't appreciate these sports like we do. So we have to continue selling those. We have to introduce these sports to, the baseball fan in New Jersey who loves the Mets but doesn't know who the Tennessee Volunteers are. We got to get that guy to watch. We got to get the guy in Michigan to watch and to embrace this. The West Coast, same way. So all that being said, I think they've been great for the game. It's a shame that they're not going to Omaha because I think the viewership would be through the roof because they're so interesting and get national headlines. Now, what's next for them? That's a totally different question because this roster is going to look drastically different last year. You're losing guys who have been there for 5 and 6 years. You're losing guys who can get drafted. Yeah, the rotation should look good with Burns and Beam. And you got a new shortstop coming in from Kansas. So Tony Vitello's recruiting is gonna keep them rolling. But I thought what made Tennessee so successful this year during the regular season was a unique blend of the veterans and the top talent. So you had guys on that team that had a very high floor, had already produced at that level, and other guys who had an unlimited ceiling, who are going to be major league all-stars. And now you got to find that mix again.
Yeah, absolutely. I just had a question about, you were talking about the sledgehammer and, the fur coat and the daddy hats and all that stuff. Well, we see that a lot in college football, but it's widely accepted. We have Alabama has the belt for whenever there's a defensive, sorry, I can't even, interception, dear God.
Yeah.
Whenever there's an interception, dear Lord. Okay. I think Miami has a chain or something of that nature, but that's widely accepted throughout college football. So why is baseball different?
The guy I talked to said, we need to, I warned them, they need to make sure that it stays in the dugout and you can't come on the field with it. Fine, whatever. Eye roll emoji. The difference is, I suppose, that all of that happens on the sideline, right? You get the turnover. They don't run out in the middle of the field and put the turnover chain on you. You run over to your sideline, you dunk the ball into you have a turnover trash can or whatever, some are better than others, let's be honest. That happens.
Turnover trash.
Sorry. That happens on your own sideline. And I wrote down I don't have it in front of me, but they were worried about like the potential of conflict. There has been no conflict. Like, why are we worrying about something that may happen that hasn't happened? Just get out of the way and let the kids have fun. And by the way, I'm not saying that every baseball fan needs to approve of these antics. I totally get it. Some people like Rocky Road, some like vanilla. But what bothered me is the people that enforce the rules were so offended by it that they felt like they had to step over the line to correct it, right? That's let the kids play is kind of the mantra I keep falling back on.
I'm with you on that. Do you think this crew came in to kind of put Tennessee in its place on Friday? And then maybe Tennessee didn't respond. We can get to that in a second. But do you think the crew came in saying, I'm going to put these young whippersnappers in their place?
I don't know that it was we're going to put them in their place, but they certainly were well aware of the reputation, and that was evident. That the Tennessee bravado over the course of the year obviously rubs opponents the wrong way and gets opponents blood boiling. In fact, I was talking with one of the Notre Dame guys. I don't know if you saw it, but in game one of the Notre Dame guys threw up his hand kind of like this right when he left the box, and it very much looked like it was the middle finger. And I asked them about it the next day, and they were like, listen, we play with confidence too, but we've got to be careful because you don't want to instigate them. Like we don't want to get them riled up. there's a difference between us playing with confidence and celebrating ourselves versus upsetting them and then like poking the bear essentially. But I do think that umpiring crews come in with like they get intimidated too. We saw that during the Alabama series. Like they get their blood up and they puff their chest out and they think they have to answer to all of this when 90% of it you could let roll off your shoulders. Now, does that mean that a player should be able to turn around to an umpire and tell him, he's effing terrible? No, you can't do that. And your pitching coach can't come charging out of the dugout and say the same things. Like those are lines that can't be crossed, or you're going to get tossed from the game. All that is fair, but yeah, there's some over policing that happens with this Tennessee team.
Okay, now let's get to Tennessee's response, which wasn't great. You outlined it. If you're Tony Vitello, how much do you button that up in the offseason before we let you out of here?
I don't know. I don't know if you do. I don't know if you need to. I think I got a text from an agent who's been around the game a long time after the game yesterday, and he said, just a reminder, there are two types of baseball players: those who have been humbled and those who have yet to be humbled. It is a humbling game, and it is a game of failure. If you can have that swagger and continue it even after moments of failure, then I think that's fine. The question is the swagger real? Is it fake? What happens when you get down in the late innings? Do you get tight? Do you commit a throwing error? Do you open the door for the other team? Do you hit into a game-ending double play? Like, what can you continue to produce? It's Tony's reputation, and he embraces it. He's done a much better job, by the way, late in the year in taking stock and taking a deep breath versus reacting immediately and rushing out into confrontation. And I think that Alabama series was an eye-opener for him. But this program, and I'd say the program, but I'm basically talking about Vitello, like I think they're going to be successful based on who he is and his brashness and his competitiveness. And I don't think there's a need to tamp that down. I mean, if Trey Lipscomb makes a play yesterday and they get a couple of hits in the 7th and 8th and they're on their way to Omaha, we're not wondering if it needs to change. We're just wondering, if they're going to cross the line sometime on the bigger stage.
Tom, will you be in Omaha? When can we hear your golden voice next?
No, I'm done for the year. I was in Omaha the last 5 years. It's a fantastic event. I'm going to miss it. I love it. But no, I'm laying low until Tennessee's Thursday night opener on the SEC network. So maybe late August. How about that?
Sweet. We're going to hit you up then. But I will tell you, next time you go to Omaha, only 2 times have I gone to a casino and won, and it's in Council Bluffs. The other was in St. Louis. So if you're in those 2 places, think of me and know you have my luck with you.
Perfect.
Every other time I've lost a lot of money, Tom.
You just tapped into the Council Bluffs tourism ad campaign. Come here, we'll give you money.
That's right.
That's true.
Let me jot that down. They're the next advertiser. I'm going to write that down. All right, Tom, buddy, I appreciate you. Great call, man. I enjoyed it. Have a fantastic summer. God bless you and the family.
Thanks so much, Dave. Great to be with all y'all today.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it. Tom Hart, and he really is just so good. I mean, he's just so good. I don't know how much you guys had an opportunity to listen over the weekend. I know and I have to turn it down most of the time. I do, because I'm going to subconsciously steal something. Like they were talking about somebody being on fire or imploding. I was like, I just thought that a minute ago, and that's what I was going to write. And if I do it now, I'll feel like I'm copying them. So I have to turn it down for a lot of it, just because of the writing aspect of it. But that conversation with Tony, this conversation with Tom Hart is brought to you by, we'll have a conversation with Tony Vitello here momentarily. We do have another comment on him, and he gets a little emotional, but we'll get to that. Brought to you by Viles Automotive Group. Viles Automotive, their mission is to be the automotive home of drivers in the Knoxville, Tennessee area. They provide a vast selection of used vehicles, exceptional car care and customer service with a smile. Their local dealership keeps a great stock of used cars, trucks, and SUVs in inventory. They've got great prices, and best of all, they've got cars. They finance as well, but I was there just the other day and they got a ton of cars, and they are tough to find nowadays. They're on the hunt for me as we speak. So Viles Automotive right there on Callahan. So did want to get to some recruiting news, but we're going to get back to Tennessee baseball over the weekend. As we look at some Tennessee football, it was a pretty small weekend. The big weekend is not this upcoming weekend, but the following one where Tennessee will try to put a few preliminary nails in the coffin to close it out. Jalen Smith saying that he admitted there's a leader for his services, the outside linebacker, 6'2", 202 pounds, out of the he's this next year's class. So he's a highly rated player out of Grayson, Georgia, that Tennessee's all over. North Carolina's defensive lineman David Hobbs picked up a Tennessee offer. So that's big for him. Malik Benson, junior college wide receiver, is key. He was in town. Aiden Mazzell was in town, receiver from Florida. He had a recent visit, allowed Tennessee to gain some speed there, but he's got top 7 favorites. I wish I had girlfriends like that. I've got my top 7 girlfriends. But Tennessee recruiting is rolling right along, and do not underestimate the ability to take somebody to an exciting event like over the weekend. Where would the prospects have gone in Knoxville had it not been for that? Calhoun's for the 5 millionth time. I mean, Amanda, that's the same thing they do when basketball's good at any school. They take you to a basketball game. You see the fan excitement. Baseball can be, if you don't like a thing about baseball, if you think it's the worst sport in the world, it still helps your football team.
Well, I agree. And people get to be around your fan base, which on Friday was not exactly the best showing by them.
But a 17-year-old may think that's kind of cool.
It's passionate. I agree.
It's passionate, but it's mustard bottles, and I can't get over the mustard bottles. Anywho, but they can also see how, as you said, passionate and welcoming and loving this fan base is. The recruiting thing just has me shook, from lack of a better word. All of the emphasis that we place on this, and these kids, I have a top 7. Okay, congratulations. Yeah. Tell me when you pick it. Just tell me when you pick one.
I really wonder where recruiting will be in another, let's say, 3 or 4 years if they don't do something about the NIL, and I guess they will, but it's only going to be the strongest programs. But I also wonder where it will be from a transfer standpoint, because Ethan, I'd rather take a kid from Arizona that's proved he can play college football, and I see him against at least Pac-12 competition, than a 4-star, well, not cut and dry, but just broad stroking it, than a 4-star kid who I've only seen against high school competition. I think recruiting is as much transferring as it is high school at this point.
Yeah, I could agree with that. I'd say between NIL and the transfer portal, I've always kind of thought that one of the two of them should go. I feel like for reasons exactly like you just said. I mean, you'll be picking one over the other, and I feel like creates an unfair advantage for the schools over some of these kids that usually would have the choice to kind of pick wherever they want, and now they have to battle people with agendas, people wanting certain things. But as of right now, that's just how it is. And Tennessee, other schools like that, they're gonna have to adapt. And it seems like Josh Heupel and Tennessee, as of right now, is doing just that. They've got a lot of good momentum going on the recruiting trail. Obviously, we're gonna talk about some of them here in a little bit. A lot of good guys are considering Tennessee that would not have considered Tennessee in the Jeremy Pruitt era.
Yeah, and I think it's time for people to realize that this is a business to a lot of these guys, and that's because of the advice they're getting from the people around them. And quite frankly, I have no problem with it. It should be a business. I mean, my son has a specific interest when it comes to college, so we're touring colleges that are best at that. So if I'm one of the better football players, it's pretty darn obvious where I'm going. They're playing every Saturday. Aside from maybe personal regional bias, I'm going to check out the Alabamas of the world. I'm going to check out the Georgias of the world. I mean, you'd be absolutely crazy not to. If your dog's crazy, then you got to go to Craft Treats. Go to crafttreats.com and your dog won't be crazy. How about that? No more anxiety. And my dog was yapping. It could happen at any single moment. My dog is not on some sort of sedative like Amanda's dog. But when he does get upset because of storms and those sorts of things, when he does get upset, Craft Treats is the way to go. And they've got the ultimate in the chill pills. And also it's great when they start to suffer from arthritis and they get a little bit older. Nobody wants that. But so how much do you curb it in? If you're Tony Vitello, you're self-assessing. I hope he's not self-assessing today. I hope he's just on a beach somewhere, but he may be recruiting. I'm not really comfortable with the recruiting calendar of baseball to know. But if you're Tony Vitello and you're assessing this season, just exactly what are you looking at? What changes might you make if I'm talking to Amanda Vitello and Ethan Vitello? Amanda, I'm going to start with you. Are you changing anything?
I mean, I think you need to reevaluate exactly how far you're going to let your players go. I don't think being a villain is really a bad thing if you can back up what you're saying. Like, as an Alabama fan, I don't mind being the villain in college football. I don't mind it. I don't mind people wanting to come after us. I don't mind all of that. But when you have such, wild antics like cussing out an umpire, flipping off the rest of the baseball world, or just everything that Tennessee has done this season, the bat flipping and all of that stuff, it's entertaining. It definitely is. But Tony Vitello needs to look and see if he can just tamper it down just a bit. So maybe it's not as offensive and maybe you don't have such a target on your back. Maybe your target is just that you're that good. You just dominate, and that's why people don't like you, rather than the bat flipping and the shooting the birds and the cussing and all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would just put it this way. You can do anything you want to in the dugout. I've told you guys before I love bat flipping, which kind of contradicts myself a little bit. But, I do know that a coach one time took over the Dallas Cowboys. I'm not even going to say his name because it makes me angry. But he had a no cursing rule, like all the time. Yeah, okay, you can't do that. I mean, if I instituted a no cursing rule, Amanda and Ethan would quit off the Hook Sports. So, I mean, they're grown individuals. Okay, I mean, we don't want to curse in the air, but but I would do something a little bit different. I would try to tweak something. I would ask around, and I wouldn't let it be just absolutely wild and crazy. I wouldn't. I bet it was wild and crazy at times during the games over the weekend, but at Big Orange Phillies there on Maynardville Pike and Halls, it's very family friendly. That's what they're all about. They've got the quick bites. They can get you a quick lunch like now if you're watching during lunch. They've got fresh ingredients. Man, it is awesome. It is just really, really good food. And isn't that the key? And they've also got karaoke. They've got darts. They've got billiards. It is a great place to hang out. It is right there on Maynardville Pike in the middle of Halls. And goodness knows that we needed something in that area. And now we got it. That's a Big Orange Phillies. Are very active on Facebook where you will see a weekly discussion with John Adams. So they're going to respond to you. They're going to be there. And Big Orange Phillies is a great place to watch the Celtics tonight. So Celtics Warriors, guys, who is on the hook for the game tonight? Who is the MIP? I say MIP with an emphasis on P, the most important player, not the most valuable player, most important. By the way, great series by Ethan Stone on the most important players. Tennessee football will kick into high gear now that there's no baseball.
Yeah.
So,
Just about to say one of those is going out today, so be ready.
Here we go. So who's the MIP tonight, guys? Who's
I'd
the
say-
most important player?
I'd say Jason Tatum. That would be He's had an interesting series, back and forth. He's had good games, he's had bad games, and the Celtics need him to have a good game. It's simple as that. Jaylen Brown has been pretty solid. You've got role players for Boston that are playing well, but you need your superstar to play well. And that's what it comes down to. And in the NBA especially, where one guy can change a game so drastically, you need Jason Tatum to have a good night tonight after the Warriors even the series.
I feel like I'm good with Tatum. I know he's a little bit inconsistent, but I feel like he's going to show up.
Yeah, but if he doesn't, then what?
well,
that's why I say most important. If he doesn't show up, the
Yeah.
Celtics, in my opinion, are kind of dead. Now, game one may
no, I
refute
would agree.
that, but you know,
Totally agree with that. Maybe I didn't phrase the question exactly right. I guess I think I feel confident he'll show up, but I'm going to say Jaylen Brown. He's been every bit as inconsistent as I thought Jason Tatum has been, even maybe more so throughout the entire season. So, if he's that 1-2 punch, and the thing that's scary is, aren't we just waiting for Klay Thompson to have that one game? I mean, he's not going to go a 7-game series without having a huge game, is he?
I don't know if he will. I mean, I really don't. I don't know if he will. He's not the Klay Thompson of like 3 or 4 years ago. He's just not the same player. I think Steph Curry is going to be the MIP or whatever you said. Either him or, honestly, it could be Green. It could be him, and not because of how he plays or whatever, but if he gets, shaken by Grant Williams or whoever, I mean, he'll get off his game, and he'll just tumble on down. So, I mean, I think it's Steph Curry all the way. If Steph Curry can pull out a dynamic performance, I think the Warriors have a good shot.
What about Archie Manning, grandson, Arch Manning, showing up in an Alabama uniform over the weekend on Instagram? So these are one of those things that they take pictures of in case you do commit. I'm talking full gear. Alabama recently landed the commitment from 4-star 2023 quarterback Eli Holstein out of Louisiana, but they'd shove anybody to the side, just like Brandon Stewart in 1994. Brandon Stewart was highly rated as well, but this kid named Peyton said, "Hey, I want to come." So Brandon Stewart transferred to Texas A&M. So Arch Manning's that type of prospect. How do you think SEC fans, Amanda, would respond if Arch Manning, not all SEC fans, Ole Miss, Tennessee, how do you think they would respond if Arch Manning ended up at Alabama?
I think at first it would be a lot of cuss words coming out of a lot of mouths.
Oh yeah.
At first, but we still haven't seen really. I mean, every player's different, so I think his last name gives him a higher boost, I guess, than other players. But we haven't seen him at the college level yet. So we have no idea how good he's actually going to be. You have a lot of high schoolers that come out as 5 stars and are great. I'll take Phillip Sims, I think it was his name. He was a quarterback prospect for Alabama. He went to Alabama. Didn't start. He was a 5-star, did not start, didn't pan out. Transferred, I think, to West Virginia, or maybe it was Virginia. I can't remember which one, and just petered out. Like, nobody's ever heard from him since. So it just depends on how well he does in college. Do I think he'll go to Alabama? No, I don't. I think he's going to end up at Georgia, and that's going to be terrible for, the entire SEC East if he, in fact, is as good as everybody says he is.
Where would you go? Let me ask each of you. And for those that don't know, Amanda is an Alabama fan, so don't hold that against her. So, where would you go if we take our biases out and we look at it from just a logical standpoint? Let me start with you, Amanda. Where would you go if you're Arch Manning?
Well, if you're Arch Manning, I would say money's not really an issue. So the NIL doesn't take, there's not a lot in play as far as that goes. If you want to go to a school where you shine, I mean, obviously you would think Alabama, where you have a really good chance of winning a national title. I could see you going to Georgia. That's possible. But if you want to be put in like the Hall of Fame and worship and admired for your entire life to come like a Peyton Manning at UT, I'd say you go to like South Carolina or something where you'll just be the end all be all. I know, but you'll be the end all be all. You'll be the world, like their number one everything. They'll name a street after you. You don't even have to win anything. You don't have to win a national title. They'll name a street after you anyway. Tennessee.
Eesh. I don't want to go to South Carolina. It's muggy. All right. Where would you go, Ethan?
I'm not. I don't think I'd do South Carolina. I do see where you were going though, and though he's gonna stay SEC. Let's just even this up. And guess who's coming to the SEC? Texas. I think Texas would be a really interesting landing spot for him. And now I'm not sure if that's going to happen, but it would be a very interesting landing spot. Texas, obviously a team that, wants to build back to their old ways, and they're very, very slowly getting there. I guess people think they're back every year, but they're not back as of right now. Arch Manning goes to Texas. They get a couple wide receivers under their belt, and he could be the golden boy there. He could be the guy that brings them back. I mean, what a story that would be. The Manning family resuscitates Texas. None of us know right now what Arch Manning wants to do. The most sense is probably Alabama. Now, would people, scorn him for that? A young kid, 18 years old, would they scorn him for that? Probably so. But Alabama would probably be the best place for him. If I'm him, I think about Texas because of all those opportunities there and because it's different. I mean, Eli and Peyton, they went to SEC schools. Texas is going to be an SEC school soon, but by the time he commits, I don't think they will be. It's 2025 is obviously when Texas is moving. He's class of 2023. So if he were to go to Texas, bring them back, I just think that'd be a cool story. Now, I'm not saying there's any credence to that. I do know they've been recruiting Arch Manning hard, and you just never know.
Oh, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Texas makes a lot of sense. I'll tell you where I would go. I would call David Cutcliffe, and he's now an advisor with the SEC. And I would say, where would you like to coach? And I would go wherever he wanted to coach because he's coached 2 Mannings. They were both number 1 picks. I would like to be a number 1 pick. So if he says South Carolina, I'm going, I hate that. It's muggy, but I'm going. And if he says Alabama, I'm like, well, Tennessee fans they'll hate me, but I'm going. If he says Mississippi State, it's like, oh, Miss fans will hate me, but I'm going.
Yeah,
I'm going wherever David Cutcliffe goes. If he has any inkling to want to coach anymore, now he's getting up there, but yeah, I know David pretty well, and he's taking great care of himself. And I think he was grinded down by the Duke thing. I think a year away. even though he's older, the heart issue has been like 25 years ago. Okay. So, well, it was mid 2000s. So, almost 20 years ago. So, yeah, he's, I remember he was the first I ever heard to say this. The best way to lose weight is put something in your mouth. If it tastes good, spit it out. And he's got himself in great shape. I think he could coach for another couple of years and make another number one pick. Now, aside from that, where would I go? It would be probably. I mean, if I take all biases out, I mean, I would have trouble turning down Alabama. I mean, they've recently produced a Heisman winner that's probably going to be the first pick in the NFL. So that to me sounds like, I mean, that to me sounds like second place. You know, and Amanda, they've proven that they can produce quarterbacks. I mean, heck, at one point Jalen Hurts transferring away because he couldn't get playing time. So
Yeah.
I don't think you can go wrong with that selection, as much as Tennessee fans don't want to hear that.
No, I mean, I honestly don't think you can go wrong with Alabama, and I'm not being biased. That's taken all emotion out of it. Nick Saban, the amount of people that have gone to the NFL and have been successful in the NFL, including quarterbacks, I think that's something that you have to look at. But if Arch Manning, and it seems like he might be a little, I don't know what the word, out to prove himself against his, I guess, uncles. If you want to go to a school that you get to play your uncle's alma mater every year, the place where they reigned, it's Alabama, because you play Tennessee every year and you play Ole Miss every year. Every year. You could dominate those schools and then just rub it in their faces literally every year.
I guess.
Would be quite the family gathering.
Yeah.
It'd be fun.
There are not a lot of people in his position. Well, there's only one person in his position, really, that has the lineage that he has to at least think about, and that has the ability to go anywhere he wants. So I would feel sorry for some guys like that, but I know the Manning family well enough to know that he's got plenty of support and he's going to make the right decision. And the day after signing day, whenever he signs, he's going to feel good about it, and he's never going to look back. That's just how those guys are wired. It's going to be interesting to watch, though, where he goes, because it's going to be. Go ahead and take a sip of your coffee, Amanda. If you're watching on video, she's dying for coffee.
I'm not dying.
So, whatever happens, it'll be shockwaves throughout the SEC. So, if you're listening on Monday, we've got all kinds of good stuff coming up. They're already on the site, offthehooksports.com. I've got a column of the greatest losses. So I guess we're going to go through tomorrow, guys. We got so busy, we didn't have an opportunity to. So we'll do that tomorrow. But there have been some heartbreaking losses, like the Sunday game for the Diamond Balls. And also, we already have a podcast up with Josh Ward at the Sports Animal, brought to you by Zool Beer, and they're like worldwide award winners. They are awesome. And Amanda has the shirt on. For those of you not watching, be sure and check us out. Yep, there it is. Be sure and check it. Yep. Be sure and she pulled her shirt up, the top part. So be sure and check us out. I said the top part. So be sure and check us out on YouTube. You can go to YouTube, and we would love it if you would subscribe. Because if you subscribe, then you'll get notifications that we got things rolling your way, and we got a lot of things rolling your way. Mandy, you good? You good?
I'm great, and also fully clothed.
Well, yeah, I didn't say that you pulled your. Come on, Ethan's. We all have shirts on. Ethan.
We all have shirts.
All right, here we go. Talk about your series before we bolt out of here. Talk about your series. As far as what's coming up, because you and I, you thought of it more than me, and I just thought it would be a great idea to count down the top 25 most important players, because suddenly it is football time in Tennessee after Sunday.
I found myself about 5 years ago, when I didn't cover Tennessee athletics, I'd forget who was on the football team in the offseason. It's just been such a long time. The Vols weren't fantastic at that point, and you'd just forget some of the important guys. You'd come back week 1, you'd be like, hey, him, I remember him. And then you just kind of play that game all over again. So I figured, let's count down the top 25 most important players for obviously Tennessee football coming up. Baseball had their unfortunate end, but football will be next. Obviously, they're the big boy in town, so we'll be counting down from that. We've got 25, 24, and 23 on offthehooksports.com. Number 22 will be out today. Not going to name who
Don't
that
tell us who it
is.
is.
You'll
Yeah,
have to see. I was already there. You got to trust me
It's
with
a
that.
tease.
Can you give a rundown though of like who you've listed so far?
As of right now, it's Christian Charles at number 25, rising defensive back. I think he's going to be really important. I have a lot of defensive backs on this list. I'll say that much. Because number 24 is Danico Slaughter. The reason I do that is just because the Vols really have a big question mark at corner. They had struggles last season in the secondary, and they have a lot of faces, not necessarily capable guys, and by that I mean guys that have played in the system before. They just have a lot of guys that they'll be able to plug in, and it'll be a completely new environment at corner this season, at defensive back, safety this season. So we've got Christian Charles at number 25, Danico Slaughter at number 24. Blanking on who 23 is right now. Who was that?
Okay. Google away, young man. Google
Yeah.
away.
Google away. Google yourself.
Yeah.
But 23 and then obviously 22 will be out today. I'm not going to say who it is, but 23, I'm 100% blanking on this right now. I'm going to look it up as we're speaking.
Well, maybe
On the
our
spot.
listeners and watchers should look it up as well. But again, we are also on Spotify and we're on Apple. So go ahead and set your notifications to Vols. Set notifications to Vols. Actually,
You got it?
Yeah.
For the people waiting that have been
fine.
waiting
Sorry.
for this for the past 25 seconds for me to name who number 23, it is Princeton Fant, tight ends. Should have a big year this year alongside Jacob Warren.
Jacob Warren's in front of him though, because he's a part of Off the Hook Sports. Sorry,
Yes.
Princeton.
You'll see where he's going soon. He's on the list.
We'll have Vol reports with Jacob Warren and Cooper Mays throughout the week. Also a visit with John Adams. So look at my poll as far as the pitching, or our poll. What is the OTH poll? If you go to Twitter, I have a little bit of trouble accessing my own Twitter. But if you'll go to that, Ethan, where does that stand? Where's the voting stand? Because I'm getting blown away. I voted for. It was okay to not make a pitching change in the 7th at the time that everybody else thought it was.
Yeah, I believe as of right now, yes, which would be yes, Tennessee should have changed pitchers is winning. I'm getting to that right now as we speak. I believe when I looked yesterday, it was at 80% yes. And right now it is 73.9% yes, 26% no. So 3/4 of people agree with me and Amanda here on this one.
Yeah.
Well, I made a little bit of a
hot take.
comeback.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you did.
I didn't
You did.
mean it. I don't do hot takes. I didn't mean it to be the hot take.
You
All
did
right,
make a
last thing-
comeback. It was sitting at 80-20, and now we're at about 75-25.
All right,
Still
so
talking.
last thing. Picks tonight, Celtics, Warriors. It's series tied 2-2. It'll be game 5. It'll be at Golden State. What say you, Amanda? Who wins tonight before we bolt out of here?
Warriors. They're on a roll. Sorry.
Like-
I know you love the Celtics. I know. Sorry. I don't think it's your year.
I do not like you anymore. Golden State
That's
a
fair.
4-point favorite. Golden State a 4-point favorite. Ethan, you?
I'm not backing down. I said Celtics in 5. Obviously, that's wrong. I'm still going to say Celtics in 6. I think they're the better team. I think they win tonight, and then they'll probably win back in Boston a couple days.
Yeah, I said Celtics in 6, so I've still got a chance. So I'm going to stick with that. Have a fantastic day, everybody. We will talk to you tomorrow, as well as all of the extra content that we have on offthehooksports.com. We want you to check it out. Speaking of, for Amanda, Ethan, and me, this has been a presentation of Off the Hook Sports.